Francesca Simon is on a journey back to the North York moors. She's found a living landscape out of her back door, alive with the rhythms of nature, sounds, changes of colour, patterns and extreme weather conditions all in one day. Her ideas are in flux, inspired by the seasons, inspired by her travels, inspired by the thoughts of change, evolution and adventure. There is no time to waste. The light in the valley reveals her mysteries, her secrets and true identity. This is a gift to the artist, offered only to the chosen few, who stand alone transfixed by the majesty of the view. There is a dawning realisation that her new subject matter was always in front of her, evolving deep within her psyche and vivid imagination, as time will tell. So you've had a year here now back at home. Has that made a difference to your work?
Yes, well I think it's beginning to, but a huge amount of my year was also taken up with moving out of the studio and my husband retiring, which meant we had to go back down to London and get all his stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it is beginning to, but I don't know. I can't really give you an absolutely categorical answer on that one.
Some artists have said they've seen it as thinking time, thinking about the work and their practice and where it's going. I mean, I think lockdown has affected lots of people in terms of their work and life and everything else that's taken place. But listening to a few of the artists that we've interviewed, they've just simply reinvented their practice. They've worked closer to home. They've not travelled,
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
And there's been a pause for thought. I got into the habit of walking the same path every day in lockdown. And I think in time this routine will result in new developments in my work. Looking down at the ground, finding the place to put my foot, has helped me in the past find texture and colour, even visual imagery, through a kind of filtering process. Somehow an echo of things seen, even sensations experienced, will emerge in my painting and drawing. What I've begun to think about though is perhaps joining my painting practice to, as I said, to the sound recordings or to photography or something maybe.
More of an installation, is it, you think?
No, not installation, I don't think,
right.
but just kind of feeding the painting. And I haven't quite managed to mesh them together yet, but I think that might happen. I'm not sure how.
We mentioned earlier, didn't we, about the sounds that you've been recording and how they make the rhythms and the. But you said for a while that the you're going back to the landscape in some way. Is that what's happening?
Well, I think the landscape was a sort of balm, actually, and a kind of way of saying it's going to be all right. There is something very reassuring about the seasons. Watching the change of the seasons. It's eternal, really.
Yeah.
And that.
Did you get caught up in those rhythms?
Yes, and it's. Although I've lived here for a long, long time, I've never been here for a whole year without a break. It's been amazing, really. So in a way, you would probably think my work would have altered more than it has.
And maybe it will next year.
And it may do, not perhaps as you imagine it, more a direct development from what I do now. The landscape is an important element in my life. But my work comes now from a love of architecture, hard-edge geometry, pattern and counter-pattern, which has been the case for at least 15 years.
Peter Coates. He has simply got on with it, working in his studio every day, carving, sculpting, and working with the very bedrock that shapes the landscape we all enjoy. There is a physicality about his work, a battle between idea and material. His sculptures are hard won, they resist intention and manipulation, but stand proud as objects of beauty when complete. They represent transformation and metamorphosis of material and form, shaped by the hands of the sculptor, seeking and exploiting the inherent qualities of stone, granite and marble. These materials, like lockdown, have not been easy to live with, but they have revealed over time hidden truths about the importance of the physical landscape in our life and in our imagination. Coming back to this last year in lockdown, How's that affected you?
It hasn't been a positive experience. Good thinking time, but not very productive. I've made a few pieces of work which I've been very pleased with. It's given room, it's provided space around things. So it's not been physically productive, but I think a few years' time I'll be able to assess it. Yeah.
So have you made one or two pieces, or not made anything?
Yeah, I've been I've got a kind of I sort of collect.
Right.
I've got a stock of sort of more exotic and rare rocks that I've been storing up for a rainy day or a global pandemic.
Right.
And
Mine.
going back to lockdown,
Yeah.
I've actually I think I've bonded with the place that I've lived in the last 18 years, reluctantly. Actually,
That's what some of the other artists have said. The same thing.
I didn't. We wanted to do this because it represented liberty, really. My own. I could build my own studio.
Yeah.
No longer was I having to.
Yeah.
I was paying 12 grand a year in rent at the place before I came here.
Right.
I was having the work that I was having to do in order to sustain.
Yeah.
You know, there was no freedom in it. I wasn't able
You
to.
were working to pay the rent.
So this is sort of liberty, I suppose. But yeah, I hated it. I hated it. I hated the landscape. I hated the winters. But this is quite a rare landscape. It's not instantly beautiful, and it doesn't have the drama of the moors and things. But what the light shows you, and when it chooses to show you, and you realise that you kind of, it's like Norfolk with the edges turned up, and there's the Howardian Hills and the North York Moors, and you will get this kind of sort of vision of a part of landscape that's just got a bit of the sun on it at one moment. It's amazing.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. The revelation of light.
But it keeps its secrets for
Exactly.
Whereas you go into more open and kind of sort of romantic and visceral countryside, and it doesn't hold those secrets in this.
How light reveals forms in a landscape and then they disappear. Particularly if you're a landscape painter.
Yeah. Yes.
You can sit there and all of a sudden a feature appears and then it disappears fleetingly.
Yeah.
And you either capture that in your memory and bring that into your work, or you don't. And I think sometimes that's a problem with being a landscape painter. And if you're particularly looking at it from a fixed perspective, is that it's gone. You know, it's disappeared, and that's the trouble sometimes. And you get that idea just stays in your head, and it has to kind of come back in some way. But by that time, the light has changed, and the whole thing just changes. So what I do at that point is that I turn the canvas around 180 degrees, and then just look at it as a painting. I'm not looking at the landscape anymore. I'm just feeling it as an experience.
So you're a vision battery as well.
A vision battery, yeah. I think that's a good way of describing it. You know, and those things just come out again and again. And again.
But that's fantastic, isn't it? Do you feel like you're in a, some people would call it dialogue, but you're processing.
I'm processing.
You're manufacturing
I'm
or what?
Myself in the process.
I'm
processing it, and then things will happen, which I've no idea where they come from, really.
That's fantastic.
I'm at Northdale, the top end of Northdale. This has to be one of the most spectacular locations to paint, just to sit and enjoy this spectacular space. This is my first proper day of painting in the landscape since lockdown. I've had permission to come here, so I feel relaxed. But I guess we're coming out of lockdown as a nation, and so for me, it couldn't be a better start to this new year to think about this rural location and how important it is in our lives as a place to wander and think and walk and talk with friends about the things that mean things to us, about the people we've lost, people we care for. couldn't imagine being anywhere else. That's what being a landscape painter is all about.